Welcome to the Athletic Brewing Post-Race Report. I'm Dee Griesbauer. Today we saw one of the most competitive fields outside of World Championship racing come together to contest the Mainova IRONMAN Frankfurt European Championship for men. We had a star-studded international field heavily represented by Norway, Denmark, Germany, and countless other countries. Action got underway at 6:20 a.m. local time at the Langander Waldsee, a stadium-like swim venue. We expected a tightly bunched field in the swim given the size and caliber of the field assembled, but were surprised to see athletes strung out in the early meters of this Roka swim course, indicating that the pace was on, largely due to the early swim leaders Jonas Schomburg, Johan Vogel, Willem Hirsch, Ben Knut, and Kasper Stepniak. The lead group was 7 strong, with a larger chase group 45 seconds back through the Aussie exit at 1.5 kilometers. Leaders continued pressing the pace through the second lap of the swim, and in the end, Andreas Salzberg would lead the group out of the water in 47:42. The lead group would surprisingly include Christian Hogenhaug, a foreshadowing of things to come. Leaders at the front of the Roka swim course traded leads to continue to keep the foot on the gas and press the pace to distance themselves from the chasers, who eventually would leave the swim about a minute and a half down. Through transition, heads would swivel as athletes took a look to see who was around them and who would head out onto the Zoot bike course in company. Through the early sections of the bike, through the technical city sections, Daniel Bakkegaard was in the mix, and Christian Hogenhaug would make his move towards the front, with the chasers all pursuing the leaders. Jonas Schomburg would be the aggressor in the first 20 kilometers of the bike, only to suffer significant mechanical issue when his entire cockpit came dislodged from his bike. He would get expert mechanical care and insert himself back into the mix, but lost valuable time, allowing Christian Hogenhaug to move to the front. Hogenhaug would continue his assault throughout the rest of the Zoot bike course as 2 chase groups formed behind, about 3 minutes behind the leader and 6 minutes to chase 2. Things got complicated as the chase groups 1 and 2 converged. Technical officials were on hand to keep an eye that legal distances were observed throughout the Zoot bike course. Bad news turned to worse eventually for Jonas Schomburg, who would eventually lose his entire front end as the aggressive 2 groups continued their assault forward. Technical officials would ultimately decide that Schomburg's front end was too dangerous for him to ride, fearing that he might impale himself, required him, in fact, to withdraw from the race. It would be heartbreak for him, but he will live to fight again another day. At the end of the first loop, the 2 chase groups would converge, with Christian Hogenhaug continuing to have it his way up the road. That chase group included a lot of race favorites: Rudy von Berg, Daniel Bakkegaard, Christian Blumenfeld, Gustav Eden, and Kasper Stornes. The chase group would fail to organize, getting caught up in the congestion of lapped athletes and in the size of that chase group, which was 13 athletes large, as they headed back into the city at the end of the bike course, moving back towards Frankfurt. We thought it might be catastrophe for Christian Hogenhaug in the closing kilometers of the bike when he got his chain lodged between his frame. It was a quick fix, and within 30 seconds, he would be back in action, making his way towards the end of the Zoot bike course and into the Rouvy transition zone, alone in the lead with a nearly 8-minute lead. However, a quick penalty for outside assistance would have him do a 60-second yellow card, stop and go. Unfazed, he got back underway and continued to run strong at the front of the race. The chasers would come, however, into T2, led by Magnus Ditlev, who made quick work of transition 2 and made his way out onto the Hoka run course as well. A lot of our favorites in this mix as well, Casper Stornes, Christian Blumenfeld, and others would get underway. Rudy von Berg made a valiant effort at the front of the race, but eventually would fade. Then drama hit for Magnus Ditlev. He was assessed a yellow card for littering outside of the aid station. He didn't acknowledge the yellow card, and eventually technical officials caught up with him and showed him a red card indicating that the athlete would be disqualified. The athlete and the official exchanged words, but Magnus carried on, unsure of how the penalty had been assessed and what his future might be. In the end, technical officials would talk it over and decide that the confusion was a misunderstanding, the red card withdrawn, and Magnus would carry on. However, he was caught by the pair of Casper Stornes and Christian Blumenfeld before the halfway point of the marathon. Still up the road, Christian Hogenhaug was running strong. Magnus Ditlev tried to tuck in behind the group of Norwegians and would hang there for a while. Gustav Iden continued his assault towards the front of the race, eventually overtaking Magnus Ditlev and moving himself into fourth place. We thought there was the potential for a Norwegian podium with Gustav Iden looking really good through the halfway point of the marathon. Eyes were forward as we thought the trio of Norwegians would eventually descend on Christian Hogenhaug, who held a 6-minute lead, then a 4-minute lead, then a 2-minute lead. In the end, only Christian Blumenfeld would have the run legs to overtake Christian Hogenhaug. The battle of the Christians decided in favor of the Norwegian athlete. And in the end, Christian Blumenfeld would defend his European title and become the champion of the Mainova IRONMAN Frankfurt European Championship for the second year in a row. In a breakthrough performance, Christian Hogenhaug would hold on to second place in a race he will never, ever forget. And fellow Norwegian Casper Stornes would round out our men's podium here in Frankfurt at the Mainova IRONMAN European Championship for men. In the end, our overall standings would include 3 Norwegians, 2 Danes, an American in Rudy von Berg, and 3 Germans. Patrick Lange, a race favorite and the local hero, would not have his day and would end up in 7th. But it was a historic day of racing here in Frankfurt. Overall point standings in the Ironman Pro Series will see Christian Blumenfeld move to the top of the series for now, moving up 4 spots. Cameron Wurf moved up 2 spots. Casper Stornes moved up 7. Gustav Iden up 10. Paul Schuster up 8. Rudy van Berg up 11. And Magnus Ditlev up 12. Dominic Suija up 13 spots. And Jonas Hoffman up 16 spots. And here are your top 10 standings in the Ironman Points Series so far for 2025. Thank you for joining the Athletic Brewing Post-Race Report. I'm Didi Griesbauer. We'll see you for the next Ironman Pro Series race.